WIS, Mr. Prabhash Nirbhay, founder and director, Flipcarbon, Mr. Tushar Shinde, CEO, Vaani AI, Mr. Vineet Dwivedi, founder, NTIO, NT.io, Mr. Yuvraj Dagur, founder and CEO, clevrr.ai. This panel discussion is moderated by Mr. Ravi Shankar, founder, Transcendent Innovations. Please join me in welcoming them with a round of applause.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a very interesting panel here today because we have a strategist and we have 4 entrepreneurs. All right. So let's see how this comes out, because usually what happens is somebody has an idea and they build something, and you really don't know whether that thing is what the market wants. Right. So in the era of in the era of AI, and especially with about nearly 2,000 AI companies which are there in India today, few $1 billion of funding. A lot of the work that we're doing today needs to find markets. We need to find a $1 billion revenue company. Right now, we don't even have one company which has crossed 100 million revenue in AI out of India. So we have a massive road ahead. And to all entrepreneurs in this room, to people, to builders, to marketeers, to everyone, we need to see how we can make this happen if India needs to be a serious player in AI, right? Otherwise, we are just almost like a services business, following the services business that we had, starting in the 1970s, 80s, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start this panel to the strategist, because I think anything that we build should have more meaning to somebody else out there. So my first question to Prabhash, right? Your company Flipcarbon consults clients on strategy. Right. How do you keep clients focused and thinking in an era of AI, keeping AI at the center of what they do? I don't know, maybe left or right, but right. Keeping it there and focus and execute in the current age to win the market. How do you do that?
Okay. Thank you, first of all, Ravi, for the question. So I run a company called Flipcarbon. We consult mostly startups and SMEs on how to grow, how to stay profitable, and how to become a sustainable business. That's what we do. Ravi, if I peel the layers, there are 3 kinds of AI companies, right? First is the core AI companies. Some of them are on the panel. Second are AI-enabled companies, where AI is at the center of what you do, but you are not really doing AI. You are doing something else. You are solving another problem. And then there are AI-assisted companies, which is pretty much everybody in the room, right? Because today you can't do things without AI. I mean, you will have to have an AI layer in your company to succeed. Now, I think it's a cliche that strategy is about knowing what not to do. So when we consult with our clients, I think our job is to minimize the complexity. I have a favorite phrase of mine, which is "Mera to simple hai," right? Because the job is to simplify and then figure out the 3 key areas you want to deliver. Whether you are delivering it. Let me give you an example. I work with a defense tech company. Now, what are the key core AI challenges of a defense tech company? Primarily, there are 2. One is the challenge of autonomy, because your system should at some point in time evolve to do things on its own in the theater. And the other is the challenge of your ability to operate in a GNSS-denied environment, where the spectrum goes away and your subsystem must still perform. Now, how do you peel out all the layers and build a team which can do these 2 things for you? That's the core. That's how you win. If you go to cybersecurity, how do you take pen testing from people and let AI do that entire thing for you? You will be able to make your client's organization that much more safer, because AI will be able to do it at 1,000,000 times of what a human being can do, right? So I think we fix those.
I think it's very fascinating what you just said, right? It is the ability to have clarity on what matters to the market rather than what matters to the lab, right? And that's a massive difference in whether your product can get to revenue and how fast you can get to revenue. This is that's a big challenge because we are largely a machine learning country. We do a lot more machine learning than we do real AI, right? So we have to find markets, and I agree with you. Thank you very much for that one, right? Okay, Tushar. Now, you run Vaani AI, you run significant complexities in voice agents. It's a highly complex country out here, so many languages, flavors, and diversity of all of this, right? How do you manage to keep up with the models, fine-tune models, such that your clients have the best outcomes?
So I ran a company called Vaani AI Research. So it started out as a research lab, and the problem was pretty significant. In fact, even if AI needs India and AI needs a lot of the data that needs to be there, the challenge was enormous because there is always going to be a data bottleneck if you're working around the low resource languages. And India specifically is a low resource language country, including Hindi, including all of the official 22 languages. So that is the first challenge in order to build any sort of recognition model or the speech model. So we had to first solve for that. So we went out actually in the market, we spoke to people, we collected all those data points, we refined them, fine-tuned them, and then we ingested them into models. And currently we are solving the language problem, but when it comes to the ground and what enterprises are asking for is the dialects, which is one level deeper from the languages. So that is the challenge that we're currently solving. And when it comes to fine-tuning, there are multiple levels of fine-tuning that we do when it comes to, of course, the overall knowledge base of the company that we are working with, and then the overall industry and the dialects and languages we are working with.
So if I have a follow-up on that, so when you say dialects, are you saying that clients want to reach deeper into Bharat?
Yes. Yes.
So that's fascinating, right? So do you think if your models get fairly fine-tuned to dialects in, let's say, Kerala or Andhra, Telangana, you think you can win that market completely for all brands going in there?
Absolutely, at least a majority share of it. I'll give you a very quick example. Say, what are the biggest businesses in India, right? Those are like insurance, financial businesses, those type of people, those type of businesses who touch 1 billion lives. And most of that population stay in tier 2, tier 3 or rural areas, right? So unless and until you speak the language or your AI speaks their language, it is not going to get penetrated. They're not going to pay for it, right? So you have to solve that problem. And somebody who cracks it is have a larger market to grab. We are onto that journey. We are not saying that we have solved it, but there's a major goal to be made if you're working in India.
Thank you for that. Okay, Yuvraj. So we're getting flavors of various businesses. As I go around, you will see that we have enterprise, D2C, infrastructure, and a very interesting play with Anand on mental health, and we'll come to that one, yeah. So on D2C, right, this is very interesting because we are in an era of what people call agentic commerce. And Yuvraj from clevrr.ai has been building a lot of stacks to do that. So my question to you is, there are a lot of architectures and a lot of models that go into this one, right? So clients are kind of very confused as to say what they can use, especially because players out there, like within Facebook, they want you to use Facebook models. Within Google, they want you to use Google models. Within, let's say, Shopify, then you have Shopify models and kind of stuff, right? And everybody wants to bite of the agentic commerce business. So how do you enable, firstly, your clients to look at these environments in a multi-agent kind of environment and collaborate? How do you do that? Because they are looking to pay you on outcomes, like you discussed. So it's very interesting, right? He's one of the very few companies I've come across who says, I charge an outcome. So love to hear that.
Sure. Thank you so much for that question, Ravi. First of all, thank you for having me on the panel. I'm Yuvraj. I'm the founder and CEO of clevrr.ai. We're building an AI co-founder for D2C and e-commerce brands where we collect data from sales, marketing, inventory, shipping, payments, bring all of that into a single source of truth and have an AI agent on top of it, which can think, talk, and act on your behalf. To your question, Ravi, I think D2C and hospitality, retail, these are one of the least penetrated industries for AI. There has the least penetration, least adoption, and the only adoption you see in these industries are generic chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini, primarily being used for content generation, images, and stuff like that. What we are still yet to see is very niche down, deep driven AI agents that can actually go and execute stuff for you. Meanwhile, also keeping away the technical complexities of the same. Because D2C specifically is a very non-tech heavy industry, right? So you don't expect a lot of technical founders. A lot of D2C brands, until they reach a certain scale, don't even have a CTO or a head of engineering or even an engineering department at all. So the whole point of having AI within the company just remains to marketing and content generation. And I think this is the main shift that we want to see in the brands coming up. We are aiming for a very bold statement of killing Excel for D2C, which is like the software built in 1985 is still flourishing in 2026, and people are just done with seeing dashboards. So I think this thing is bestowed upon us that we bring the capabilities and the whole infrastructure of not just using AI for these brands, but also making it simpler to use, not intimidating, not letting them use the AI just because it's FOMO, it's 2026, it's the age of AI and everyone is doing it. But to drive actual value from the data that is just sitting in your Excel sheets for quite some time and no one even bats an eye on that. So that's the bet that we wanna play, and I'm super pumped to bestow on this journey.
Awesome. So, who is your customer?
So a lot of times we get this question that are you only working with small brands, big brands? Our defined ICP is brands who are doing upwards of 10 crore rupees a year at least. So we don't work with brands who are doing anything less than 1 crore rupees a month.
And the buyer within that organization?
So the brands who are doing typically operating between 10 to 50 crore rupees a year, it's the founder, because mostly these are very lean teams. We've seen brands operating at 65, 75 crore rupees with only 10 people team. And these 10 people teams are all head of their departments and directly reported to the founder. So the buying decision remains on the founder. The moment you cross 100 crore rupees of yearly revenue, that is when the mid-management and operators get into picture. And the beauty of that is, again, at that point also, the brands are pretty lean compared to the revenue stage. But the beauty of that thing is these operators are actually decision makers. So the founder rarely says that, no, why are you doing this and stuff like that? Because it's a very fair point of if a software or a tool is increasing the productivity of my company, why would I say no?
Got it. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Anand from West, a very interesting company. I guess in the age of AI, to be working deeply on mental health. And you're on the engineering side?
Yeah, I head the AI department.
Fantastic. So this is a very complex piece of engineering. And I had a question for you. On one hand, you are addressing clients from all parts of the world, right? And so natural language processing comes into play at a very deep level. On the other side, you're dealing with compliance from HIPAA to everything else across the world in different markets. In Europe, there's a different standard. India, there's no standard. Is there a standard in India?
It's not as good as EU.
Okay. So EU comes up with first all the rules that you cannot break so nobody can start a business. US makes it difficult for all the new age companies to come and break the incumbents, so they say HIPAA. And India allows you to grow fast. But you guys chose to grow global markets. Okay, so a little bit on how you handle the complexity of NLP on one side and a whole bunch of rule engines on the other side, right? Will you talk to us about it from the engineering perspective?
Right. Thank you so much, Ravi. A little bit about what I do is I head the AI department at Wiser. It's a mental health company who has two products. One is the AI chatbot that you can just come and free of cost. You can just talk, rant at 3 a.m. When you need a friend. And the other is actual therapist that you can talk to. Coming to the point that Ravi asked me is how do we ensure that the product remains global but is still safe? So at right now, nobody in this room is surprised by the idea that LLMs hallucinate, LLMs go off the tracks, and in a domain like mental health, when safety is the most important concern of the user as well as the person who is buying from you, your end customers. Guardrails is something that we are deeply interested and passionate about. The questions that you asked before, so many of you answered so much content that resonates with me. So you mentioned the defense, you mentioned evals. So these are all things that we are doing on a daily basis. So any model switching that you also asked about has to be deeply rooted with the type of evals that you are looking forward to make your product into. So for example, a person from Singapore who is talking about their hardships, their lives, and a young girl from Maharashtra coming in from the villages and talking in their own native languages, your AI should be able to understand the dialects, like you were mentioning, but at the same time, the code rubric or the decision rubric in which, in the arena in which it works, should remain the same for all. So yeah, that's the mix of rule-based as well as the LLM generation.
So do you use your own LLMs? You use a bunch of LLMs? You've written something on top of LLMs? Wrappers on LLMs? What do you do?
It will be surprising to hear this, but answer is yes to everything. So we do orchestrations, we do agents, we do rule-based, we do handoffs, and then there is the core LLM content generation that happens behind the scenes.
Very interesting. Then I'll talk about compliance when it comes to it, because this seems like a compliance nightmare to me as you go around through all these things, right? Especially on healthcare. You know, if this is banking, also I'd be a little worried. I understand a little bit of that, but this seems fairly complex to me. Come to that. Okay. As you can see, you know, all what people are talking about here on stage is about using machine learning, and I don't want to use the word AI because I think it's much abused. A lot of machine learning to do processing, to get consumers, to get businesses, to get to where they want to go. As we progress into the next 18 to 24 months, it's going to become very imperative for India to start building its own infrastructure layers. Infrastructure layers to help processing faster, sovereign AI to be supported on own racks, and so on and so forth. So I have Vineet from ND. He's doing some fascinating work on vector databases. I think this is first time I came across this and I said, wow, somebody's really doing some cool work. And it's really hard work. It's not easy to do this. And it's something that only engineers will understand at this point in time. So to the engineers in the room, listen hard. How did you optimize embeddings for real-time querying for resource-constrained Indian environments? Because, you know, the CFO wants power. The marketing guy wants massive databases. The operations guy wants speed.
Yeah.
And CFO has no budget.
So I'll just give you a brief about what ND is. ND is a vector database. I'm sure 50% of the people here will not probably appreciate what a vector database is. But when an AI agent wants to search something, it always resort to a vector database. So basically, they want to search from millions of vectors, millions of documents. They always use a vector database for fast searching. That's how it is used. Now, the vector database sizes can be, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, even billion. Okay, and it has to be very, very efficient for agents to search that data in almost real time. So you cannot have very high latency. You cannot have very low throughput. You need to have very, very high throughput. So what we have done is we knew that the vector databases which were there earlier, they're not designed for scale. They're designed for the data which was there earlier. So because data was small, now data size is growing. So you need vector databases which can handle billions of vectors. So we designed it from the grounds up to be very, very performant. ND can host almost 1 billion vectors on a single node, which is not possible in any other vector database.
That is insane.
Yes, yeah. And the way we have designed it, we have changed the entire graph structure, which can actually optimize embedding automatically, the graph, the way you search. And we also have done a lot of optimization on the processor side. For example, ND understands that this is an Intel processor. It has these many instructions, and these are the instructions that can be squeezed. It can understand, if you're on a MacBook, if you're on newer, Neon processors. So we try to optimize from everywhere possible, like from disk I/O to memory to processor and to the graph algorithm we use. And that's how we have like very low latency and very high throughput.
So when we talk about Make in India, we should be looking at you.
Why not? Like,
So it's very important. From here, we will graduate. So give you a sense, the first set of questions will give you a sense of what are these companies doing? How are they approaching the market, right? The more important thing that gets lost out in the context of Indian startups and ideas is how are we winning the market? How are we scaling in the market? How are we finding the market? So I'll start with Prabhash. And, it's always good to see from a customer's side. And he sees customers across many, many verticals. And we're talking about it in the sidelines. So a good story from pilot to scale. How would that sound?
Sure. So first, let's come to the Make in India question. When you talk about Make in India, you should look at Flipcarbon as well, because at least over the last 11 years, 300 plus clients have been building in India, and we have been supporting that growth.
Awesome.
Yeah, across 50 industries, by the way. So a lot of Make in India, in fact, Flipcarbon exists because of Make in India. One of the things that we want to achieve is, one, build that top 4 consulting firms out of India, one of those. Second, this entire growth of India from about $4.5 trillion to $25 trillion in the next 20 years. That's something that we want to participate in. And this entire model to market, some great stories, Ops Indoor, very much our product was out there. When I say our product, my client's product. And from imagination to delivery, it's taken less than 18 months. If you talk about any other industry, in fact, that's the beauty of what we have been trying to do. That how do you take an idea and build sprints around that, consulting sprints, so that you can take it to the market faster and you can make a scalable revenue stream out of that. So that's what we have been working on with clients. The example that I've just cited, I can't talk too much about it because of national security issues, but great example. If you look at other industries, for example, you can look at how this event is being managed, right? One of our clients has completely cracked the code of you not having to go to a human person to get this for yourself. You can pretty much get this on your own, just on a QR code basis. And you can go to the counter, which is the least crowded, because that's how the AI layer on top of it diverts you. It allows you to go to a place where you can, the experience is seamless for you, because one of the registration is one of the most painful experiences when you go to an event like this, right? How do you delayer that, make it easier for people? That's an example. Taken them pretty much, build this. When everybody was thinking that events like this will go digital during COVID, this client of ours was building this product, saying that people will rush to come back to a physical infra.
So, I don't think we are short on innovation, right? I think one of the biggest problems that we have is how are we scaling? And this is the singular question that most venture capitalists ask you if you're looking to raise funds, right? How will this business be a $1 billion business, right? I mean, it's an exaggerated question, but it is not only how they want to see how you visualize it, but they also want to see is there a market for it. A lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs get trapped by not thinking that. I think one of the most important things that you do is, apart from innovating on what your idea is to start thinking, can this idea be that big, right? So I'm going to go back and pick Vineet, because we go this way around again. So the Make in India idea of large vector databases and managing it right. So first question to you, Indian CFOs will ask, kitna hai? And basically, how much does it cost? And cost becomes always the first question over performance. And strangely, they would have a price list, or they'll ask you to get the price list of your competition as well. So how do you compete with guys like Pinecone and guys holding your database as competition, right? Especially when most CFOs do not have the knowledge exactly of what you do.
So for us, the cost is not a problem, because ND can give 10x performance at the same cost of Pinecone or Quadrant. So we never get an object from a CFO. We always get it from their cybersecurity team or even the CTO themselves. I mean, because you are a small startup, so the trust becomes very, very important. And large enterprise doesn't want to bet on small startup. They always think that if this company shuts down in 2 years, what will happen to my database? And because you have like all the data is going into that vector database. That's why we also have like open source our version. So like there's a continuity for big enterprises.
So your GTM,
Yeah.
do you think it makes more sense in your GTM for scaling to partner hyperscalers, to partner service providers? How do you look at it?
Hyperscalers is like a really good way to go. So idea is like, you launch ND in all the hyperscalers and people can go to their marketplaces and buy. And this also bypasses their CFO because, every company has a budget from these hyperscalers, like from Google or Amazon. So they're actually using Amazon's machine and paying us rather than taking an individual approval for ND.
Very interesting. Thanks for that, yeah. So Anand, you cater to global audiences, like we discussed, right? As a head of AI, there are two challenges that I think you face, and this is my understanding, you could correct me, right? One is optimizing your algos for performance, optimizing your algos for audiences who can come from anywhere. And the other thing is regulations and rules. How do you balance a price point of all of these things such that for your paying customers, your premium customers, right, you're able to create a margin? How do you think of these things?
Yeah, that's an important as well as interesting questions, and I'd like to build upon what you mentioned. Right, for a business, I think at least in the mental health space, it's so important that we crack the code of trust before we go and crack the code of pricing. So trust for us is very important, and one of the ways that in which we tackle that is also going up to the therapist and then saying that, like you were mentioning, like partnering up with a hyperscaler. Our hyperscalers are actual human therapists. So we go up to them and say that, okay, this is Wiser. It's going to improve your life by doing this, etc. And then these are all the proven ways in which we have shown outcomes. And Wiser, by the way, is the highest proven outcomes repository for all of mental health space. So that is the core component in how we value our value. And on the pricing point, yes, LLMs technically are expensive, but we are also banking on the fact that over the years, you don't need a Claude Opus 4.5 just to tackle your mental health. You can do a very clever orchestrations of which model to come in when and at which point in the conversation. And it also depends on a lot of back and forth between the technical team and the clinicians. So we have clinicians in-house who are the main experts. We are the enablers of the vision that the clinicians are having in Wiser. So that is one of the main things in how we cleverly orchestrate, and then we do sprints for value tracking, and then all of that eventually boils down to the leadership's pricing point and the basically the partnerships team's pricing point.
It's fascinating because there's a very difficult, it's actually difficult to control the number of tokens you bust out in conversations. So once your bill starts, the meter doesn't seem to stop, and a lot of these LLMs, as I find, are actually, they carry a small nuclear missile inside to poke a significant, bill into you. So yeah, it's going to be a massive challenge as you try and wrap up some of these things, right? And keep those conversations optimized before you hand them over to a therapist. Very interesting. Right? So, Yuvraj, right? Talk us through your India GTM and how different it's from your global GTM. Or do you have a global GTM at this point?
We actually have one brand from Singapore, one brand from Canada. So the global GTM hasn't been kicked off in a very big scale, but India GTM has been working really well. So for the time being, one of the most important things that we feel that we do is lead magnets. And lead magnets is just such a wonderful thing to actually build, especially in this time, because building stuff is not a bottleneck anymore. I mean, you can go to AI Studio and build a full-fledged app in like what, 2 days, and bring that into production. Now, these doesn't have to be very production-heavy things, because these are just calculators or just lead magnet apps that you would use to get one part of your job done. But it works so beautifully in India is because one is there's a trend of commenting X to get Y on LinkedIn. I think every one of us here has at least commented once on LinkedIn and said that comment X to get Y and stuff like that. And this scales so rapidly that you actually get a lot of people to get the lead magnet to work on. So one of the things that we built was a D2C unit economics calculator. What it does is you have like these different sections which you want to optimize for your marketing spends, you want to optimize for your COGS, you want to optimize for your operations, fulfillment, etc. And you can just simply put in your existing numbers, let the AI analyze those, manage your COGS, and then give you a break-even point about if you do anything less than that, you're in red. And this actually helps, one, build trust with the brands, because they want to understand and get this feeling of satisfaction that, okay, what we're doing is fine, right? It's not that we're bleeding a lot. It's not like that we don't know our stuff. A lot of what we've already put in, the numbers are actually the numbers that the AI has also suggested. So this, one, brings the ease of usage to the brands. Two, it brings credibility and trust in us that these guys know their thing, right? So they can operate on top of that. And apart from lead magnets, it's events. We've been part of D2C events, Startup Mahakumbh, D2C Insider, etc., where these brands literally come looking for solutions such like this. So interestingly, out of the 50 plus brands that we work with, first 10 to 12 actually came inbound through events. And we closed one of the leading kitchenware brands in India through these inbound events. And that was phenomenal. So I think events like these is a fantastic place to kick off your GTM, especially in an early stage company like ours, because you neither have the bandwidth, nor the human power, nor the capital to run a scaled out outbound motion. So in events and lead magnets work wonderfully for us. Happy to talk to anyone who's building a GTM motion around these.
Yeah, I completely agree, right? It doesn't matter how small or how big you are, but you need to know where specifically your client is. So you need to have a razor sharp view on who your client is and where they're going to be, and go find them, right? Thank you for that one. Okay, Tushar, you moved from research to enterprise. Massive jump, right? This is still almost like Silicon Valley style. Research to enterprise client, right? So talk us through a little bit about how you convinced your first client, or how did that happen, the GTM motion?
I have a very interesting theory when it comes to cracking the code for scaling. Of course, there is a technological scaling that you do, but it becomes an engineering problem then. And if you want to get into the customer's environment, you need to crack it from the GTM side. Specifically, it is applicable for conversational GenAI companies, because GenAI is an inherently undeterministic system. And in order to make it work so that it can generate some ROI for somebody, there has to be certain iterations. Whatever that you build, say it's a chatbot or a voice bot or anything in that system, the first draft never works. Client will come up with a lot of edge cases, a lot of scenarios, and then there has to be iterations where forward deployed engineers bandwidth gets stuck. Some of the times our bandwidth also gets stuck, right? In order to come out of this, this is almost a 2-month process, even for an SMB if you're serving them. So in order to crack this, what we have adopted inside the company is create a distributed network. And the model is very similar to what Salesforce did or SAP did back in the day, 90s. And something which we have forgotten in the SaaS wave in the last 10 to 15 years, right? So SaaS was always out of the box. GenAI cannot work out of the box. There has to be something over and above that. But if you start doing that, you can't do more than 5 clients or 5 customers in a month, right? The only way to scale is to create a fleet of partners, train them very, very well onto your offering. Your offering might be very complex, just like Salesforce or SAP. But that complex offering, there's a layer in between, which is a partner layer, our implementation partners. They implement it for customers. And then your job becomes, how do we make a successful story? How do you make, how do you drive ROI for the end customer? So that's what we are good at. We build technology and then we enable somebody else to sell that technology at. So this is how we crack GTM.
Very interesting. Okay, we have 6 minutes tops. Okay, so we're going to run through this session because at the end of the day, whatever we build, whichever market we find, the only way you're going to get a check if it's great impact. So I'm going to start with Prabhash. How do you actually help companies focus and find those measurable outcomes, those impact?
So there are two aspects to this. One aspect is on the strategy layer and the product layer. So I think there are three fundamentals, right? And if you look at deep tech especially, Diganta is 7 years old, still pre-revenue. Agnikul Cosmos is still pre-revenue. I think it's almost a decade-old organization. I worked with Idea Forge, which was pre-revenue almost till 2018, and it became a listed entity in 2023.
Absolutely. Very fast move.
Right. So, and it was 11 years old and pre-revenue. So I think because revenue is not the primary marker, you need to really fix some of the others. And I look at it from three perspectives. The first is, do you have a very, very clearly defined moat? Because that's what is going to make the investor excited about your business. That do you have the IPs? Do you have the algorithms? Do you have the product which is ready to ship? So if you have a solid moat, chances are you'll be able to raise funds. The second is, and equally important, is adoption, right? If you can get people to start tinkering with your product, your idea, even if you're pre-revenue, if enough number of customers are excited or consumers are excited about your business, I think it's a fundable business, and those are the things that we try to fix when we work with clients. And the third one is, of course, route to revenue. You may not have money in bank, but if route to revenue is clear, if you have your operating plans are well, let's look at semiconductors. I work with semiconductors, right? The minimum strategic roadmap has to be for about 15 years. Very little is likely to happen before that. And India is betting a lot on that. So how do you build a 15-year strategy, but with very clear quarterly outcomes, right? So these are extremes, right? On one side you have a 15-year strategy, on the other side you have quarterly outcomes, because that's what drives the ability to keep it going quarter on quarter. So these are the things we fix. That how can I have the smallest horizon, which is this moment, and the largest horizon, which is 100 years in my mind? Because I always believe I was lucky. I worked with 3 companies, all of which were on the verge of becoming 100 years or already 100 years. Sam Miller was already 100 years old. Arvind will complete 100 years in another decade. ACC will complete 100 years in another decade. So I only know 100-year companies. I do not know fly-by-night operators, right? I only know 100-year companies.
Startups are not your cup of tea.
No, startups are. They are. In fact, I work with a lot of startups. I just named a few.
That is just set in light.
But the founder must have a 100-year vision.
Yeah.
That's the core. I think
That's a very well said point. It's a very well said point. You need to have a long-term vision.
if your company can't be larger than you, then are you even building something, right?
Fabulous. That was very interesting. All right, Tushar. How would you optimize for real value that you show to your client? I mean, what should your client be measuring? For each one of you, I'm going to ask the same question, because this is very important. A lot of people look at the tech, but they don't know what are they measuring as real outcome. What is the value you're delivering? What do you think they should be looking at in voice?
Right. So, as everybody knows, voice is the most intuitive form of communication than text and than any other modality. But in order to put it in front of customers, because whatever we build is getting put in front of customers, and if it hallucinates, if it says something that it is not supposed to do, then it will come back to us. So, majority of the time is going into building the trust and building the confidence of the end customer into using that and putting it in front of the customers. And how do you build that trust? You can't build that trust by building something which can be used out of the box. So our majority of the time that we, engineering bandwidth we spend is how do we build that confidence? And how do we build that? We build a number of unit tests. We have a specific evaluation framework. We give the confidence to the customers through multiple iterations, and we have a scaled GTM for it, as I mentioned earlier. So I think trust and confidence into generative AI system, which is inherently not that deterministic, is something what matters.
How will they value and pay for it?
It is basis the outcomes of what we drive, and outcomes are sometimes very hard to attribute. If
Yes,
you're
that is why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
It is for everybody in this room. Every Gen AI company is struggling to say what is my outcome. That is the most important thing.
Right. It also depends on what kind of pricing model do you have. We never have an outcome-based pricing model because that is a dead end. Unless and until you can attribute it back to the value that you have generated, you're not going to get money. And as a startup, you don't have any more resources. So we always charge basis tokens. But outcome could be tracked if it's a sales-driven use case, if it's a lead qualification use case where a lead is qualified or lead is converted, then you can trace it back. But if it's an inbound use case like a customer support, there's no attribution to it.
Add something there. I think one of the effort isn't the business, outcome is the business, right? And this I tell to almost 100% of my clients that look, the layers that you are peeling, the final layer that you need to pull is the P&L layer for your customers, right? Whoever you are going to service to, and that's what I have done in consulting as well. If you cannot attribute to either top line or bottom line or long-term sustainability, right? That's the solution. Actually, these are the only three solutions all of us are giving. Any company in this room, these are the three solutions we are giving, and we need to be able to attribute to our outcomes.
The buyer always needs to know why is he going to become a hero. At that level, coming to you, Yuvraj,
Yep.
how would you articulate value of customer 360? I mean, are customers paying for it, customer 360? Because, I think most guys in early D2C or even established are blind. I've played around with so many websites just to see how their bots behave and how the agentic commerce works. They're all blind. They don't even know what I'm doing. And I take them around in circles, right? And consume the tokens. How do you do that?
So for us, the outcome is pretty razor sharp. We want to save you ad spend. That's the most critical business question that everyone asks. At the end of the day, the whole point comes to whether you're making money, or saving time. These are the three outcomes that any one of us would want to pay for. If a company comes to me and say, I'm going to save you money, make you money, save you time, that's the thing I would want to pay for. We are on the spectrum of saving money on ad spend because we've seen brands spending crores, 2 crores, 5 crore rupees on ad spend in a single month and still being stuck on 1.5x ROAS.
Just love it. It's a straightforward conversation.
Yeah, because that's what matters at the end of the day, right? I come from Rajasthan. I'm a Jaipur guy, and we're very clear dhanda perspective. ₹1 dalo, ₹1.5 nikalo. That's my perspective around business.
I'm going
right?
to run because they've got a time's up value. So
Sure,
two more
sure. So
questions.
I'll just quickly wrap it up. So how we do it is if you can pinpoint this is where my ad spend is leaking, and I can show you with data as well as intelligence that this is where your ad spend is leaking. You're free to challenge it. I can show you my data. You can show me your data, and then we can compare it side to side. That lays out the whole picture. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to take my product back. But that rarely happens. So yeah.
Thank you. Anand, Copilot. I like the whole concept of Copilot in your platform. How does it create the impact?
Yeah, so the question is same for everyone. For us, you either buy Wiser for yourself or you buy in bulk for your org, your friend, somebody else, right? So if you buy Wiser for yourself, clearly you need some kind of support. And in that, impact is very clear. You talk to us, you share, we give you some action items, you follow through with your conversations, whether you feel good or not. So the term that we use is resilience, whether it helps you go about your daily life without having that mental load. And for the people who are buying for other people, specifically like corporations, governments, even India, US, UK, NHS, those folks are buying so that their people are taken care of and they get back what they are putting in their company. So, for example, one thing that we do with an organization I won't name, but it was mainly around that, okay, you are having a difficult conversation with your manager, HR, there's some layoff looming. This is something that we give to you so that you can have a conversation, and in your mind, your resilience is up and you're able to show up in your work 100% every time.
Very interesting. 2 in 5 people have mental health problems. 4 out of 5 people I know in my friend circle are encouraging people to go and look up platforms like Visa because work stress is getting at a different level. College stress is at a different level. We are living in times where these kind of co-pilots are extremely important. So very interesting industry, how it's evolving. People are sharing secrets, people are sharing information. That's why I keep pushing Anand to say, how do you manage privacy? How do you manage government guidelines? This industry is going to blow up. It's going to be one of the biggest we're going to ever see on the AI side of things. A great place to be in. Okay, Vineet.
Yeah.
You are the only infrastructure guy here.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So if somebody was to say, Vineet, give me better latency or give me lower cost or, whatever, what's your pitch?
So, I mean, the value proposition for us is very clear. First thing is like infra. So basically you're going to have, it's reducing your cost by almost 10 times. And then, we also and then the management, like for example, you don't have to manage a cluster, large cluster. So if somebody wants like lower cost, it's already there. You don't have to ask about lower cost. If you want lower latency, then of course, you have to basically upgrade your servers.
So what happens in India? What do people ask for?
India, the people we're talking to, very few of them have the scale at which they start seeing the real value of ND. Most of the people are doing pilots, which are like 100K, 200K kind of vectors. So it does not make sense for them to switch to a larger and most performant, vector database. But the people who are working with 100 million to 50 million vectors, they realize the value very, very clearly.
I think in 2 years' time, you will have few hundreds of companies on this because people are not really bringing the data out. But the biggest consumer, I think, in his area is going to be the government of India. We're going to need more sovereign such databases, management, more. And it's going to be a massive industry, everything from healthcare to defense. And you should watch out for these guys. Thank you, everyone. Any questions? Happy to take. We've got some very interesting people on stage.
Yes. We have one here.
Hi. First of all, good afternoon to everyone.
afternoon.
My name is Rachit, and I'm a second-year engineering student. And this question is for anyone who's willing to spill some secrets. So let's say in this very rapidly evolving area, which is AI, we see that if someone proposes a solution today, we can see that by tomorrow, there's another solution already. For example, less than a year ago, Lovable came out, which was building applications. And now we can see that Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, all of these do the same thing faster or better. So when we're thinking of starting or doing a startup, in what direction do we think of so that we don't get trampled tomorrow or the next week?
Can I answer that question? Yeah. So actually, I'm not answering that. I'm copying, the answer from Arvind Jan from Glean. And he said, if you get into something which has a very large market, for example, if you're building a coding assistant, forget about that. The big guys will do it. Big guys will not touch something which is very small and requires, a very specific workflow. So use agents to create something which is very niche and very specific workflow. And it may not have a very large, $100 billion market, but still have a 100 million market.
Just to add to that, this is my third startup, right? And I can very well tell you that the itch to startup gets you at wrong places, man. Don't go there. The main point over there is don't look for problems to solve. Let the problem come to you, right? This is one thing that I've learned in the very short span of startups that I've been in, is that when you go out, so the time when I sold my last company, I was literally looking for problems, and every other problem statement that I saw was a very fascinating one. But when you go on and do a little bit of research, you understand that there's something which is very stupid. And the most important or the most interesting problems comes naturally to you, right? So as a college-going student, don't look out for problems. Let the problems come to you. Scale it. Don't think about scaling it. See it from a lens of whether 100 people like you, million people like you, 2 billion people like you are going to have that problem or not. The AI is going to be an enabler. I read this quote the other day that AI is going to be like electricity. Today, you don't say that the light has a feature that has electricity, right? The similar way SaaS companies in tomorrow are going to be like that. AI is not going to be the feature; it's going to be a necessity. So don't look for problems. Let the problem come to that.
I think you are looking at it from the wrong perspective. The right perspective, let's look at India. If somebody was to look at India, roughly $4.5 trillion, they say, very small market compared to US or China. But if you look at the $25 trillion opportunity that is the next 20 years, you suddenly see a very large market. So I always believe that a business is all about a CAGR and a time. So as long as you are willing to focus on these two, pretty much, even if you start a samosa stall and there are hundreds of samosa stalls in India, right? You can scale it. So look at what the companies like Samosa Party and Samosa Singh are doing. They entered an industry which is crowded, right? And they are still making money in that industry. So I think solving the problem well is where the moat lies. Focus on what you are good at, how much time you are willing to give it, you will grow.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, last for the students, and there's one more question, just one more, sir. For the student, because he's a student, and the best advantage you have is that you can backpack across India. Please find problems for real people. 9 out of these 10 AI companies, AI is coming only from Silicon Valley, are solving for things we don't even know what they're trying to solve for. Okay? And they're trying to find problems to solve for. India has 1 billion people. That's a singular advantage we have. We have 1 billion consumers. You have to go for that. Take a backpack, climb the trains, climb the bus, get across India. You'll come back with many more. Sorry, sir. Last question.
It's okay. It's quite the opposite end. So, I've been in the industry 33 years, and the startup I just did does software development. And there's probably 200 other companies that are doing exactly the same thing. And I obviously believe that we're doing it far better than what everybody else is doing. And so the question is, do I go for the big fish, the large software development companies, or do I go for the small ones? And because the large ones have options as well, but the small ones is probably a larger number of small ones.
I think you should look at us, right? When I started Flipcarbon, and see, for the student, the other answer is that all companies will pivot, multiple times sometimes, right? That's not, you actually sometimes don't know what problem you're solving. You eventually figure out. So when I started, I was chasing the large enterprise, correct? And then I realized that the large enterprise will go to the McKinseys and the BCGs of the world, right? And I pivoted to the startups and SMEs. The ticket sizes tend to become smaller, but the number of tickets can be huge, right? The number of companies that get registered in India every month is not a joke. Right? So, and if you solve for those many, I think the number is something like 12,000 companies per month. So I believe in the SME startup segment. I believe that there's a huge pot of gold there. You just need to stick with the problem, solve it well, do it consistently. My oldest client is 8 years with me, and I'm only an 11-year-old organization, right? But in that 8 years, they have grown 10x. In fact, my promise to anyone who wants to come to Flipcarbon is 5x in 5 years and 10x in 8. No, that's how I want to solve it. So if you can solve it well, you will get the business.
Just a small learning that I can share is, if you have anything to do with AI, or any of your product has anything to do with AI, there's no moat which can survive for like more than 3 months or 6 months, right? So if you are building something in that space, don't try to go in the moat way. Like, I'll build this and I'll survive for next 10 years. It is not going to happen anyways. The only moat that I found till now is the distribution and how vertically integrated are you in any of the workflows. So find markets or find problems or use cases which can have a hyper speeded distribution. So those are many use cases like that.
Got it. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, respective speakers, for an outstanding perspective. I request all the speakers to join us for a group picture. Before we continue, let's take a moment to acknowledge the partners who have made IDS 2026 possible. Gold partner Bit, PacePrint, First Hive and Jagran News Media, and silver partner Times Internet.